Doesn't like to admit it. That he's born in
I told
England.
you when I was one, so.
Do you have a British passport?
And New Zealand passport.
Nice. Okay, good.
So, this is our Jake in England. He was 10 weeks old.
Oh,
Michelin man.
happy little boy.
Yeah, only 10 weeks old there. And then he probably would have been, we're definitely in New Zealand then, he would have been 18 months.
Now, see, I think this photograph, I said to Sarah, this photograph's not right. That side of the chair looks like he's got a broken arm. It does. It looks like,
It's
like
because you're
this.
thinking about breaks today.
It looks like this is bandaged up, don't you think?
It does look like it. It's the flex.
Yeah. And
Sorry, back on task.
early infancy photos, really cute, bonny, laughing. He was ear infections, like this is his doctor's book, July 97. Glue ear, grommets, antibiotics, grommets, long-term problems with ears, infections, eardrums, acute pain, doesn't sleep, we are worn out, bladder infections, changing diet back then in 97 because of all the gut issues.
Try and find gluten-free. You guys are spoiled in this era.
Cut out dairy, asthma, basically right round to say 5, 0 to 5, he just completely screamed all the time, rolled around the floor, was in chronic pain, 2 sets of grommets, multiple amounts of antibiotics. He had all of his shots on time, like his 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 months. It got round to his 4-year shots, and my mother instinct, that voice, it said don't give him those shots. So I didn't. I actually listened to my voice, and I didn't give him those shots. And he started school at the age of 5. He'd had a few delays with his hearing because of his grommets, and they'd completely assessed him over and over again for his speech and his language and his development. And they felt that because he had special education services, occupational therapy, speech language therapy, so really thoroughly assessed before school age, and they didn't detect anything other than keeping an eye on him for his language, because he had so much issues with not being able to hear, because when you can't hear, your speech doesn't develop. So he started school at the age of 5. And, it began, can we have your up-to-date vaccine certificate? And this is a New Zealand vaccine certificate. And that is signed.
So it's a certificate, it's like something they expect you to frame and put on your wall.
Well, yeah. But I'm an anti-vaxxer, so how has an anti-vaxxer got a certificate? So this shows that he had his shots in 2002. So he started school, and he had the MMR, DTaP, and polio all on the same day. And so he started school, and I've got his school photos.
Someone's correcting you. You're an ex-vaxxer.
Yeah, I am an ex-vaxxer. That's what I said. I'm. I can't be anti-vax because I've got this certificate.
Are you still on morphine, love?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
She's on morphine. Okay, just so you all know, if she gets a few things like muddled.
So I've got.
Look at all this paperwork.
Oh my God!
Someone says they love you.
Oh, I love them too. So, because you need to see Jake's picture when he started school.
Look at this. This is a typical, when you got an injury in the family because you got this. That's how the Name the Autism file started.
Did I?
Yeah, a whole lot of faces.
Where?
Trust me,
Too much morphine.
That one?
No, picture of Jake. No.
He's a joker, your dad, isn't he?
He's never serious.
Probably here.
Keeps me saying.
Ah, here we go. So
There's not a picture, Jake.
Jake started school
Oh, he's cutie.
and he's got his school uniform on.
It's okay, I can do it too. There, like that. We like to merge our peeps.
Yep. And then he had his vaccines, and then on his medical notes, he was hospitalised. Within a few weeks of his vaccines, during that time, he started verbalising how much pain he was in his legs, in his body, in his head. He started getting all the. They're looking at the screen.
Yeah, look at that. If you think that's good, look at all them hearts.
Yeah. He started getting all the sensory issues. So basically, he completely regressed in front of his teacher. And you remember the day, don't you? Do you? That day when he had that scream and arched his back and we took him to hospital? You don't remember?
Of course I do.
Okay. Remember we took him to A&E? That was
One grey.
Yeah, when we were in Fongray. And we were at your mum and dad's friends.
Yep.
So he kind of started in the morning with this really massive scream at the age of 5. And we brought him into the hospital, and they thought that he was presenting symptoms of meningitis. Like, why is it when these kids have these vaccine injuries, they're always presenting signs of meningitis? So they start going down the lines of looking for meningitis. But in the end, they decided it wasn't meningitis, and the scream, because he was screaming, "Mummy, please help me, my head hurts." And the conclusion was, after a couple of days, go home with Pamol. And the usual story. So 2 weeks later, on his medical notes, I've taken him, and that's in 2002. So that's even before Andrew Wakefield had his paper retracted. I took him to the doctor, and the doctor noted that mum and school have witnessed him losing skills and regressing and withdrawing, and he actually completely regressed at the age of 5, and he had an autism diagnosis by the age of 6, and then this was the new Jacob.
All these phones coming in together. All you can see is your fingernails.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, it's because I've got a thing on my phone.
Can you see his face on the screen?
Yeah.
He's in so much pain.
Sorry about that.
He's in so much pain. And so he described a 24/7 head pain back then, of which he's still got now.
Do you still get that pain now?
Yeah.
Or is it like thumping or something? Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's awful.
He was. You were diagnosed. You kind of remember having autism, don't you? Sort of. Oh, but you don't remember ever wearing this uniform as a child, do you? He has no memory as being a child. It's kind of like, the story is a bit deeper actually. So he was fairly. He needed teacher aides, and we needed a lot of. We really battled through the education system. Jake's one of the oldest kids coming through New Zealand, so the education system, you know what it was like, Polly, when our kids were younger. We are one of the older parents coming through, whether it be in England or New Zealand, wherever we are. And I've really battled to make the New Zealand education system a good place for these kids coming
Right,
through.
sorry, how old are you?
Really rude.
23.
I thought so.
1923.
I'm 45, but Jake's the same age as Billy. I'm a bit younger than you, Polly.
I'm happy to be old. Listen, I made it.
Fairly stable for 9 years, and I say 9 years because what we did is we went back and we vaccinated Jake. So even though our gut had told us that he'd kind of regressed, and the medical system had said, no, it's all in your head, that's all been debunked, vaccines don't cause autism, they can just change at any time, it just happened to be at the age of 5. you know, we were fighting the education system. At the age of 14, there was a really big campaign for meningococcal C, 2011.
That's when the kid died, didn't
Yeah, and I got feared into the vaccine. My
he? Well,
gut,
the whole school, didn't they?
yeah. I was
They told
really,
our school that we weren't allowed to go to school if we didn't get the vaccine.
I really was like, yeah. I really was kind of, do we, don't we? Oh, what if he dies? And I justified that it wasn't a live virus. It didn't have, it didn't have any mercury in it, because I knew about mercury and I knew about live viruses. Oh, the meningococcal C would be fine. It'll all be fine. And then so he had the vaccine, and he regressed all over again. Basically, he regressed all over again on day 1, and then by day 6, I'm just looking for his photos of his regression, because that was Jake's next vaccine. So he went from.
Let me look through your camera.
So he was a.
By far the best way of doing it.
He did have speech. I mean, you saw he had a diagnosis of severe autism on the paperwork, but he had a bit of speech. He needed a hell of a lot of care. Sam has been the mighty sibling that done everything for Jake ever since he was little. But by day 6, he had stopped walking, talking, eating, was in chronic pain, chronic exhaustion, and we never saw this kid again until about 19. So we lost him from 14 to 19. And so Jake really doesn't have any memories of life under 19. It's like he's been in a coma and then come out, and since 19 he's kind of like been learning what a bank account is. To get him like this, it's probably a good idea. Gary talks about the money, because
How much does it cost you? Seriously, it's a good question. I mean, what does vaccine injury mean to a family financially?
I would say probably spend 30k a year, probably.
a year, yeah. I was going to say, if
But
you're going to say
just as
30k
well
all up, then you're
I'm
30k a year, yeah.
Worked hard, but a lot of people probably couldn't afford that. So what do they do then?
Jake's standing there because we've spent a mortgage on him.
And what a fine young man you are. Yeah, you are. You're well proud of you.
Good stock.
And this is all because of vaccine.
Yeah. And yeah, like Gary says, 30k a year. I mean, that's a second income for a family. But he has had the best of it. Any doctor, whatever is possible to try and save him, we've done it.
You don't give up, do you?
No, you don't give up, because when he got injured like that the second time, in New Zealand, that's when the corruption began, because first time round they can use the word it's just a coincidence, that, just a coincidence, but it happened again. So all of a sudden it's called a re-challenge, where you've re-challenged the same thing and the same thing's happened again, So they were like, bugger, this kid's a vaccine reactor. So he got basically refused healthcare out of paediatrics. He got turned down paediatrics for 3 years, and the mental health services, like all the systems that you are in countries, he got completely turned down. Medical notes removed. We fought with every day. It was just constant, wasn't it? All day, every day. Begged the health minister, the prime minister, MPs, the National Health Board, the DHB, the Ministry of Health.
But when we went private,
New Zealand
they
Paediatrics.
contradicted everything that was said, wasn't it? And we get what we wanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, as soon as we went to a private physician, they agreed that there was something wrong with Jake, but that as soon as we were in the public system, they said that there was nothing wrong with him.
So you didn't know who to believe. Well, you did, because
Yeah, we knew he was sick.
we knew when we were paying. Yeah, well, Vaxxed.
So he was completely bedridden. He was completely bedridden, and the whole system in New Zealand had completely said no to any type of care. Adult services, paediatric services, child, adolescent mental health services. We, again, financially, we had to get a lawyer and take on the district health board. Funnily enough, I'm in the hospital that actually turned Jacob down. This is really freaking me out. This hospital, Bay of Plenty DHB, nearly put Jake in a coffin. Dun dun dun.
And now you're going to get amputated.
And now you're in here, so watch out.
Yeah, I know. And because like we took on the CEO and governance and everything here, but anyway, let's not pick on Bay of Plenty DHB because I'm in here having surgery next week.
We got a 3-day admission.
Yeah.
3-day admission to Starship.
I'm glad you understood what that meant. A 3-day?
3-day admission. Sorry, don't speak slowly.
Yes, could you please?
3-day admission to Starship.
We had to
Just
get a
kids'
lawyer.
hospital up in Auckland.
And
That's our international paediatric, our top paediatric hospital. So we fought for 3 years to get Jacob a 3-day admission. I needed a lawyer and to take this hospital on to get him there because it was all in our head. Polly, how many times is it all in your head? Yeah, these kids that are 50 kilos, their guts are destroyed, their immune systems are destroyed. They can't walk, they can't talk, they can't eat, and it's all in our head. I've got pages and pages of paperwork where the mother has manifested that the child has actually got a medical condition and it's not autism. Because I have screamed and shouted for many, many years that this autism is a sick child. I don't believe in the word autism. I've been anti-autism. I'm anti-autism.
Right, this could
But
be
I
the
am.
could be the
It's the
morphine.
next word.
It could be the morphine.
Chili wine.
Yeah, but I know that I've written so many letters to the Ministry of Health and everything saying to take this label off him because if autism is a mental health condition, then he doesn't have autism because he's sick. Simple as that.
And basically, his vaccines did this. It's a vaccine
That's right,
injury, so
yeah.
they do put bullshit labels on us.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. So we went into Starship and he was there. It was a 3-day admission for them to assess whether there was anything wrong with him or not. And within like the first 10 minutes, their jaw hit the floor, and he basically was admitted for half a year. They said that he needed to actually be on the Starship ward for a minimum of a year, and then he was going over to it's called Wilson Centre in Auckland. It's a brain and spinal rehab centre that he would have to get to a point where he was semi-okay, out of the danger zone to even go over to rehab. So he was nasal gastric fed for 10 months. In the hospital. He was diagnosed with postural tachycardia syndrome, like the Gardasil girls, because we fought to get that label off him, and people actually look at him medically. And it was postural tachycardia syndrome, complex regional pain syndrome, the CRIBS, chronic fatigue syndrome. He's got complement immune deficiency, a complement 4. He's got neutropenia. He's got all the inflammatory markers. This is his neurotransmitters in his brain. That's the glutamate off the scale there. Just everything we've done. And then when we were in Starship, they started just pumping drugs into him. They gave him ketamine for several days, and they were giving him all the. They started on all the.
For the head pain.
They started on all the mental health meds, didn't they? And he,
Touched on that.
but he started all that trimmering. His body started. They were putting him on all this medication, and then he was having all these violent tremors. And then they were saying they were kind of like making out that he was going that way anyway, and that was part of it. And basically, they made him worse. So we nearly fell out then.
They stopped it all, didn't they?
Yeah, we nearly fell out then because I was going to take him out of hospital, and he's like, "No, you need to leave him there." But basically, I kidnapped him out of hospital, didn't I? And I snuck him out and took him to a private doctor in New Zealand who took one look at him and said, "Get him out there quick." So, yeah, we basically gone down the whole route of biomedicals, no drugs. Like Gary says, you know, mortgage year after year on him, never given up.
But it was also a full-time job for you, looking after him, which is probably another 30-40k a year that she's lost not working.
Doing 100.
So it's based on...
How's it been for you? You're the sibling. How's that been? Because we hear a lot from siblings, it's kind of tough life.
I've always seen myself as almost a third eye, because growing up I've always stopped him from walking out in front of cars. Yeah, he's always stayed on the bus and just carried on to where he's gone, and no one's known where he's been. So I've always just had to watch out for him and always be there, and just always be aware of where he is at all times.
We love siblings, by the way. We're a big
Should do,
sibling
should do.
fan club.
And Sam would always, like, when they got on the school bus and Jake wasn't on the school bus, because everyone knew that if Jake went missing, everyone would text everyone that Jake wasn't on the bus. Sam would always text me. Everyone had their eye on Jake, and it would always come through Sam. So,
Jake, you all right about us talking about this?
Yeah.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. It's going to help a lot of people. Yeah, really appreciate it.
yeah.
Just
Because
checking.
you've actually said, say whether these are your words or not, Jake, but that you felt when you were at your sickest that no one was listening to you, and no one believed you.
Apart from my family.
Oh, that's kind.
Hey, that's a nice thing.
So your family believed you,
Yeah.
but everybody else didn't, because you really tried to tell people that you weren't well, didn't you?
Yeah.
But the words don't always come easy, do they? They don't flow like they do from other
So,
points.
Jake's actually been a real advocate and allowed us to speak about his story, because he's really keen on other children not having to experience what he's experienced about.
Yeah, but also, you
Not
know, the
being
other thing
believed.
is that you're like the voice for children like Billy, because he can't express himself as well as you.
Yeah.
So we really, really appreciate you talking about it, because it helps us understand what they're going through, and they can't speak like you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It's alright.
They're saying thank you too. Everyone's saying thank you.
Because you want to, you kind of like, you do want to help kids, don't you, and help them not be injured.
Yeah.
No, you suffered enough. It's not fair, and you're still suffering with these headaches and stuff.
But you do heaps though, don't you?
They serve snowboards, they wakeboards.
You look like a cool surfer,
Anything on a
dude.
board, really.
Yeah. These three are like the action men in the family.
Well, you're not.
No.
Certainly, you're not. Disaster.
No, we're
You.
just good at it. You're not.
We have this magical thing called coordination.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. And what else do you've passed all your school then?
Yeah.
Driver's license.
You got your driver's license.
Restricted.
Nice. Good job. That's brilliant. And what's your like ambition? What do you want to be? Forgetting money or anything else, what would your dream job be?
What are we fixing at the moment? In the garage. Doing what?
I'm thinking about learning to shape boards and stuff, become a shaper of boards.
To make boards. Nice. Really good idea. Really good idea. Well, let us know when you're up and running.
And he's a drummer as well.
Oh, cool. Well, Anu can play the. What can he play? He can sing.
Guitar, bass, drums.
Guitar, bass, drums. So I think we could. We've got enough Vaxxed peeps to make a
Got
little
bit of a
band.
band there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if someone had said, actually, we should ask Sam this. Did anyone ever believe that? Did you believe that your brother would ever drive?
No, still don't trust them driving now.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah.
I don't like it.
But Jake's the only one that hasn't had an accident in our family.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Because he's so black and white and so cautious.
We just picked him up from the penalties today. We got a permanent running account with the penalties. See the Sarah, Sam,
We're on a
Jake.
first name basis now.
But I think he's done. So at the end of the day, we do talk about our experience as a family, because we've had the first injury and told it wasn't an injury. We have gone ahead and vaccinated again, and kind of proved to the system, I suppose, that it is an injury. The doctors are in belief, very strong belief, that Jacob is a really obvious case of vaccine injury, and they've actually put a New Zealand ACC claim in for a vaccine injury. So he's being acknowledged in New Zealand as vaccine injured. It doesn't mean that he's going to get
$8.
paid out or anything. But as far as the medical system's concerned in New Zealand, his New Zealand GP, I'm not a Google parent with a child that's vaccine injured. I'm a parent of a child that a doctor says that has had a vaccine injury.
Wait, so when you guys like get married and all that kind of stuff in the future and you have babies, what are you going to do with vaccines?
That's not happening.
Amy's not getting married.
Yeah. Nah, from what I've seen, and for the starters, she'll never let me. She'll stab me with a knife before I vaccinate a child.
That's true though.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Holly, he himself has been he's been injured, but much more mildly. But he's declined at exactly the same times as Jake has done. Sam's actually diagnosed with ADD, and he's lost his diagnosis. So he's the ADD, asthma, allergies, eczema,
Yeah.
Healthy diet though, he doesn't.
but he's completely gluten-free, dairy-free,
Good for you.
completely.
Did you say you're 19?
18.
18. Coach, if you could have a word with my 19-year-old son Toby about being gluten-free, I'd be really grateful.
Yeah. It was a bit of a. It took a little bit of convincing at first, but once I went all my diet plan, I just felt so good that even when people asked me when I want certain foods and chocolate and whatnot, I just didn't want it.
Well, he
Okay.
Just felt no need, and I felt too good to ruin it.
Sam's going to be like the new age guy that's, you know, he's you're gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, you don't drink alcohol, you're so Mr. Clean, aren't
Do you not drink any alcohol? Good for you. No, that's good. I don't either.
There's been a few
He's dabbled, but it doesn't work with his body.
What's that noise?
tequila.
Oh, it's a phone. Okay,
It is a phone.
I thought it was some kind of hospital machinery going off. Oh, live on Periscope.
And Jake, before Jake went gluten-free, the change in Jake going gluten-free, he was, yeah, what word would you describe him?
No, it's like his brain became awake. He just, more vocab, just. Yeah,
It was night and day with
expressions.
Jake on gluten and then off gluten.
We were all shocked at the difference, just with actually being able to hold some sort of conversation with him.
There's normally only talks when you talk to him.
And when
And it was
when he,
one-word answers too.
if Jake does have things like that, and he's been,
Jake, you're being so good.
oh, you're an
Thank
angel.
you so much for putting up with this, but you
Pretty
really
much
is
just
going to help a
ripping
lot.
on him.
I know, it's just like, let's
And
yeah.
he's not giving us words back.
Yeah.
But look how
Thanks,
stunning
Jake.
he is,
Yeah,
though.
he's really, you're a very handsome family. Yes, you are.
I'll take it.
Take care. You boys getting a lot of. I think you boys should maybe drive the Vaxxed bus. In
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I don't want to draw too much attention.
You could put the surfboards on the bus.
Maybe.
Yeah, just think of all the surfing you do as you go around. Can you do any
Well,
surfing?
chicken
Snowboards.
What,
Snowboards as well.
Snowboard all around the country.
No, but on the Vaxxed bus.
Take, record stories and then go for a good old surf.
Yeah.
Because we have loads of free time, do we? Not.
Yeah, always. I used to look like I was 33.
All right, people are liking that idea of you boys.
Oh, great.
Oh, the boys on the bus.
Yeah, the boys on the bus go round and round. Okay, that's not good. What is
And Jake's got his drum kit. Sam plays the guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need the younger generation.
That's right, we'll
to
stay
take
at home.
over. We're getting tired. We're getting old and
The
tired.
Cox
and
family
banned
band.
from everywhere as well. All right. Anything else? Anyone's got to add to this? Any advice? Any
Don't
advice?
do it.
Yeah.
There
Good
we
advice.
go.
And thank you for being honest on that.
Yeah.
Some
We
people are
need
frightened
dads
to say
saying that,
that.
don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do it, peeps.
Don't do it. Simple as that.
You wouldn't yourself ever have a vaccine, what you've seen your kids go through.
No.
And we've done all their genetics, and I know, but sorry, but they're MTHFR carriers.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and we have treated him as if he is a non-methylator with the MTHFR. Actually, Truly's dad is a specialist with MTHFR.
Truly's dad is amazing.
Yeah.
And camera.
We did an interview with him today.
Alright.
And she
Dr.
is-
Godfrey. Yeah, Dr. Godfrey rocks, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He was fantastic. But we don't want to keep you with this. You've got to be worse. We don't
Yeah,
want the nurses
thank
coming in
you.
shouting at us for being unvaccinated in a hospital.
Yeah, true.
Very, very
I know, we've been
dangerous.
talking about it really loud.
Naughty, naughty people.
Okay, guys, you are amazing. Literally, you boys, these two are getting a ton of love. you are getting a thank you so much, Dad. You're amazing.
They're getting all the grandmas.
And they love you, Sarah. What can we say?
Oh, I love everyone. They're so awesome. They just support me all the time. I know I put my head on the chopping block
Funny, Jake.
now and again, but everyone's got my back, so thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming out and doing this interview.
Thank you.
And Sarah, we're so sorry about this.
I don't think you should walk downstairs anymore.
I know.
Are you going to have a hard cast on so we could do the Vaxxed injuries could sign on here?
Yeah.
Sign my leg, babe.
I know. I want you to sign my leg.
All right, we're going to say goodbye. We love you very much, Sarah. Thank you for all the work you've done. And people are sending you so much hearts and love.
Say bye, boys.
See you later.
Bye.
All of
See you
these.
guys.
Enjoy the rest of your journey.